down if you want to. For those of you viewing, it'll be on the screen for you. Point number one, a grave call to a grace-filled church. A grave call to a grace-filled church. Verse 22. But prove yourselves doers of the word and not merely hearers who delude themselves. Now, you may say, I've heard this verse preached 1,000 times. I don't think that you've looked at it close enough. The first thing that I want you to pick up here is that there is something that each of us have to do if we are called by the name of Christ. And that's something that we have to do is to prove that we are who we are. We have to levy some kind of foundational, fundamental proof as to who we are. No longer can you just say, I'm a Christian, and go by that pronouncement. You're going to have to prove whom you are. Now let's talk about how we're going to do that. And I think Jesus says that better than James does. So why don't you go with me to Matthew chapter 7, and we're going to start at verse 21. Matthew chapter 7, verses 21 through 23. Not only does James say this, but Jesus says this also. And I believe that these verses are very important. Now, this is what Jesus says. And I don't mean to scare you Christians, but I do mean to scare the sinners that are playing. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord. You know what Jesus is saying? Don't come to me with religious talk. Don't come to me with that. Not everyone that says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. So Jesus is saying not everybody's going to get there. Not all people talking about God. Not all people saying that they are loving God. He says, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven will enter. He who does the will. And then he says, many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name cast out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? And then I would declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. Now this is Jesus making this perfectly clear. And this is why when you look back at the text in verse 22, but prove yourselves doers of the word, James is in total agreement with what Jesus is saying. We as Christians today must become those kind of people that are doers of the word, not just people that'll hear it. Akuo is the Greek term that when you hear the sound of something. But we're going to get deeper into that, what you have to do in order to take these words. I mean, it's not like a preacher with a rap hoodie on, making a hoodie video, dancing around talking about you be you. Each of you as Christians should know that the Lord died on Calvary so you don't have to be you. It's you that he came to save us from. He didn't save us to make us to be free and doing whatever we wanted to do. Us being free to do that is what separates us from God altogether. So these admonitions found in Matthew 7, 21 through 23 are so serious in our day and age that our obligation reigns supreme as we strive to keep this particular dictum. See, what I'm dealing with, and some of you know what I'm talking about, I receive phone calls, I have meetings with people, I listen to these people are saying some of the craziest things I've ever heard as Christians. Crazy stuff. And Mother, I'm trying to, as a man, I'm trying to say, you know what? I love these folk, and I want this to be right, but I can't justify it. Now, you guys can just move over, make some room, just move over. We got seats. Come on in, guys. Move over. We got them right here in the first row. It looks like it's crowded. Move over. Oh, yeah. Sit over there if you want to. Cool. Now, you ain't going to be able to follow unless you have a Bible. There it is. Now, because see, in a Bible fellowship without the book, you just can't follow. Now, let me get back to it. And you can look at the board and see where we are, guys. That's where we are. All right. You have to prove yourself. And that's what we're talking about. In some very tangible way, when it says in verse 22, prove yourself, I've got to live this in order to justify. Get this now. Get this. In order to justify, mother, you going to heaven, you got to live this. You can't take no preacher's hand and shake his hand and say, oh yeah, you gave $5,000 to the building fund. You going to heaven. No, you got to live this. No. Well, I'm going to heaven because my daddy was a deacon in the church. No, Ricardo, you got to live this. You know, I gave my brother-in-law a Bible. No, that's good works. You got to live this. Pastor John, what? Look at that fine lady. Ooh, mama. PJ, what? You got to live this. See, you're making business deals, right? Financial stuff and taking kickbacks. Hold it. You can't do that. You've got to live this. Oh, I'm going to leave my husband. I'm sick of him. He makes me sick. And I'm going to leave him and dump him. Hold it. You think you got... No, you got to live this. Now, they don't preach this in most of these churches. In most of these churches, they got you rocking and rolling and bumping and squirming and rapping and clapping and everything else. No, he says, prove yourselves. In other words, work is implied in this term. But the work that you're doing is not for pay. It is for heavenly recognition and then reception. You see, if you're going to be recognized in heaven and received in heaven, you've got to live this. One of the hardest thing to do is for young men to live a Christian life. Because y'all got everything going against you. Everything just cramming in on you. Everything. Hardest thing, oh man, can't nobody live that. Yeah, right. I was talking to a guy yesterday. Deborah, I got to tell you. I was talking with a guy yesterday and he says, man, you know these women out here? I said, man, you better be careful. I said, you better marry this girl right here. I said, because most of these women out here are tramps. And then his fiance kind of smiled and everything. I said, but you got to make sure you ain't no tramp. You got to live this. And then the man said to me, Greg, see, that's why I like my pastor. Because, see, he going to tell me and he don't care who mess up. I said, all right, but that's not going to get you to heaven making that statement. You've got to live this. This is what the writer is saying right here. In other words, this reception is something far greater than this world. Got your Bible? Turn to Romans chapter 2. Romans chapter 2. Romans 2, 13 and 14. Romans chapter 2, verses 13 and 14. Oh, this is good. Because I see that Paul here is sounding just like the writer James. He's not saying anything different. That's what I was telling the young man Michael that was here before he went into the living room for the children's church. Michael was asking me, well, how do you know that the Bible is all saying the same thing? Bob and I was telling Michael, says you got one guy writing saying one thing and another guy writing saying the same thing, and it all agrees. Now look what it says. It is not the hearers of the law who are just before God. See, you can come and sit and listen to a sermon all you want to. That doesn't justify you at all. It says, but the doers of the law will be justified. In other words, if you're doing what you hear, that is what gets you into heaven. When the economy crashes, when all craziness starts happening, guy asked me when he was by the house last week, and he said, all right, so Pastor, tell me what you're going to do when America comes to an end. I said, I'm going to put on my robe, my collar, put on my sashes, all my fancy color clerical stuff, and I'm going to have a Bible under one arm, and I have my pistol in the other hand empty. And then I said, it's not by power, nor...